Her name was Linda. She was 61 years old, retired, and full of life, one of those patients who always greeted me with a smile and a story. She had type 2 diabetes for years, but said she kept it mostly under control. She watched her carbs sometimes, took her medication most of the time, but she didn't feel sick, so she didn't worry too much. She told me once, "My sugar's a little high, but I'm still kicking." And I smiled, because I hear that a lot. Then one morning, I got a call from the ER. Linda had been making coffee when her right arm suddenly went limp. She couldn't speak. Her face drooped. Her husband found her slumped against the kitchen counter, confused and terrified. The CT scan showed an ischemic stroke caused by a clot that blocked blood flow to her brain. She was lucky. She got to the hospital in time for treatment. But when I saw her later, lying in that hospital bed, her voice barely above a whisper, she asked me, "Did my sugar do this?" It's a question I wish more people asked sooner. Because the truth is, yes. Blood sugar, especially when it spikes and crashes repeatedly over time, can damage the blood vessels that feed the brain. And that damage doesn't always wait until you're elderly or severely diabetic. It builds silently, invisibly, until one day a clot forms and everything changes. I've seen it too many times. Patients who don't realize that their sweet tooth, their skipped medications, their soda habit, these things weren't just affecting their energy or weight. They were affecting their brain, their future, their independence. And the worst part? Most of them didn't know the risk was real until after the stroke hit. So today, I want to have the conversation I wish I'd had with Linda 2 years earlier. I want to explain how blood sugar affects your blood vessels. I want to show you what your numbers actually mean, not just high or low, but what those numbers are doing to your body, day after day. And most importantly, I want to give you hope, because this risk is manageable, controllable, preventable. Whether you've had a stroke or you're trying to avoid one, this episode is for you. It's not about fear. It's about knowledge. It's about taking back the steering wheel before the road turns suddenly. And if you find this episode helpful, or if you know someone living with diabetes or prediabetes, share it with them. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. This isn't just a medical show, it's a place where we learn together, heal together, and fight back one decision at a time. Let's begin. To understand how blood sugar affects your stroke risk, we have to talk about what happens inside your blood vessels day after day, meal after meal. Every time you eat, your blood sugar naturally rises. That's normal. Your body digests carbohydrates and converts them into glucose, which becomes fuel for your cells. But when those rises become too high or too frequent, that's when trouble begins. High blood sugar, especially when it stays elevated for hours, puts stress on your blood vessels. It damages the lining, called the endothelium, which is responsible for keeping your arteries flexible and smooth. Over time, this damage creates inflammation and makes it easier for cholesterol and clotting materials to stick. Now imagine this happening every day for years. People with diabetes or prediabetes often live with chronic hyperglycemia, blood sugar that's slightly or significantly too high all the time. But even people without diabetes can experience post-meal spikes that reach dangerous levels, especially if they eat a lot of processed carbohydrates, sugary drinks, or large portions of refined starch. These sharp spikes create what we call glycemic variability, and emerging research shows that glycemic variability may be just as harmful, if not more, than constantly high glucose. Why? Because these ups and downs make the arteries less stable and increase the risk of clot formation. Let's take it further. When blood sugar is too high for too long, it leads to the formation of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Think of AGEs as sticky byproducts that bind to proteins, and weaken the structural integrity of your tissues, including the walls of your arteries. These AGEs are like rust, silent, slow, and destructive. They stiffen the blood vessels, narrow them, and make them more vulnerable to rupture or blockage. Add to that another silent player, insulin resistance. When your body stops responding well to insulin, sugar can't get into cells, and it stays in your bloodstream longer. Your pancreas compensates by pumping out more insulin. Over time, this high insulin state causes thicker blood, promotes inflammation, and can even contribute to high blood pressure, another major stroke risk factor. It's a cascade. One imbalance leads to another, and the brain, which depends on clean, consistent blood flow, becomes the ultimate victim. In people with diabetes, the stroke risk is twice as high compared to those without. But even without diabetes, consistently high blood sugar can lead to silent damage, microvascular injury, capillary narrowing, reduced oxygen delivery. You may not notice it now, but your brain does. And when blood flow to the brain gets interrupted, even briefly, neurons begin to die within minutes. But here's the part that gives me hope and gives you control. Unlike genetics or aging, blood sugar is something you can influence every day. Through food, through movement, through timing, you can reduce spikes. You can reverse insulin resistance. You can protect your arteries. And by doing so, you protect your brain. In the next section, I'll share a story that changed the way I talk about blood sugar with patients. A moment when the science became personal, and when a small decision made a very big difference. I remember a patient named Marcus. He was 54, a former truck driver who had recently retired due to chronic back pain. He wasn't someone you'd call unhealthy at first glance, no major complaints, no medications, still fairly active, but he had something a lot of people overlook: prediabetes. He came to me because of fatigue. "I'm just tired all the time, doc," he said. We ran his labs. His A1C was 6.2, just above normal. His fasting blood sugar was hovering around 118. Not terrible, not diabetes, but not safe either. I explained what it meant, that his blood sugar wasn't in crisis mode, but his blood vessels were already under stress. I told him how blood sugar spikes, especially after big meals on the road, were wearing down the inside of his arteries. He nodded politely, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "My dad had diabetes and lived to 82, he said. "I think I'll be fine." 3 months later, he wasn't fine. His wife called my office in a panic. Marcus had collapsed while trimming the hedge in their front yard. He couldn't lift his left arm. His speech was garbled. He had suffered a stroke, thankfully mild, but enough to scare him deeply, enough to make him listen. In the hospital, I sat by his bed and went over his labs again. This time, he listened differently. "I didn't think it would hit me like that," he said. "I thought I had time." That's what struck me the most. Not the numbers, but that sense of false safety. He thought because he wasn't diabetic, he was out of danger. He didn't realize that years of uncontrolled spikes, soda with lunch, white bread at dinner, big carb-heavy breakfasts were slowly priming his arteries for that one clot to land in the wrong place. After discharge, Marcus changed everything. He started checking his blood sugar after meals, switched to whole grains, walked every morning. His A1C dropped below 5.7 in 6 months. But more importantly, his mindset changed. He went from reactive to proactive, from ignoring his risk to owning it. And every time I talk to patients now about blood sugar, I think of Marcus, because his story proves a powerful truth. The danger isn't just in being diabetic. The danger is in being uninformed. Let's break this down. First, what do we actually mean by blood sugar? It's the concentration of glucose in your bloodstream. Glucose is your brain's favorite fuel source. It's essential. But like fire, It needs to be carefully controlled. Too little, and your brain shuts down. Too much, and your blood vessels start to corrode from the inside out. After you eat a meal, especially one high in carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. This is normal. In response, your pancreas releases insulin, a hormone that helps shuttle glucose into your cells for energy. But if your body becomes insulin resistant, those cells stop responding well to insulin. The pancreas compensates by producing even more insulin. And over time, this cycle leads to chronically high blood sugar levels, even when you haven't eaten. That's the foundation of type 2 diabetes, but here's the catch. The damaging effects on your blood vessels begin long before you're ever diagnosed. Even prediabetes, defined as an A1C between 5.7 and 6.4%, can lead to significant vascular changes. Studies show that people with prediabetes have a higher risk of both ischemic and hemorrhagic stroke. Why? Because repeated sugar spikes create oxidative stress, which inflames the lining of the arteries and makes them more prone to rupture or blockage. Think of it like pouring acid over a pipe every day. Eventually, the structure weakens and something bursts. Another key concept: glycemic variability. It's not just your average blood sugar that matters, but how much your levels swing up and down throughout the day. Those dramatic swings, like from 90 to 200 and back again, are extremely hard on your arteries. They confuse the body's regulatory systems, promote inflammation, and contribute to plaque instability. That means even without sustained high levels, you're still at risk. Let's talk numbers. A fasting blood sugar over 100 milligrams DL is considered elevated. A post-meal spike over 140 mg DL, 2 hours after eating, is a warning sign. An A1C above 5.7% means your average blood sugar is creeping into dangerous territory. These numbers matter, not because they make you diabetic, or not, but because they reflect the health of your endothelium, the lining of your arteries. And when that lining gets damaged, your risk of stroke increases. Let me be clear, stroke doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's the end result of many small assaults over time: poor diet, lack of movement, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and yes, uncontrolled blood sugar. These risk factors don't add up, they multiply. And the more you let your blood sugar spike, the more pressure you put on your arteries to hold the line. What does the science say? One major study found that people with type 2 diabetes are nearly twice as likely to have an ischemic stroke compared to non-diabetics. Another study showed that even a single post-meal glucose spike above 160 milligrams DL increases markers of vascular inflammation. That means even if your A1C looks okay, frequent sugar peaks can still do harm. It's not just about averages, it's about moments. Now, let's connect this to insulin resistance, the silent driver behind many sugar issues. When insulin stops working effectively, your liver keeps producing glucose even when it's not needed. Your muscles don't absorb sugar as efficiently. Your fat cells begin to store more, and your bloodstream stays overloaded with glucose and insulin at the same time. This toxic combo stiffens arteries, thickens the blood, and elevates triglycerides, a known risk factor for stroke. It's like your body's traffic system is gridlocked, and the brain is the next exit. So what can you do? First, know your numbers. Get your A1C tested. Check your fasting blood glucose. But don't stop there. Monitor your blood sugar after meals, especially if you're eating high-carb foods. 2 hours after eating, your glucose should ideally be under 140 mg/dL. If it spikes to 180 or more, that's a red flag, even if your A1C is under 6. Second, focus on food quality and timing. Start your day with protein, not sugar. Avoid drinking soda or juice with meals. Pair carbs with fiber and fat to slow the glucose response. Choose complex carbs like quinoa, lentils, or sweet potatoes over white bread, pasta, or pastries, and consider time-restricted eating, which gives your insulin levels a break during the day. Third, move your body, especially after meals. A 10 to 15-minute walk after eating can dramatically lower post-meal blood sugar spikes. Movement helps shuttle glucose into your muscles without needing as much insulin. It's simple, it's free, and it works better than many medications. Fourth, if your doctor recommends medication, don't hesitate. Metformin, for example, is often used early in prediabetes not to label you, but to protect your blood vessels. Medications are tools, not punishments, and when used early, they can prevent years of damage. Lastly, understand this. You don't have to feel sick for your body to be under attack. High blood sugar doesn't hurt until it does, and by then, the damage may already be done. That's why stroke prevention isn't just about managing emergencies. It's about managing the invisible. In the next part, I'll walk you through the most common mistakes I've seen patients make when it comes to blood sugar and stroke, and how to avoid them before it's too late. I've worked with hundreds of patients managing high blood sugar, and I've seen the same 5 mistakes come up again and again. These mistakes aren't about laziness or lack of willpower. They're about misunderstanding how blood sugar works and how silent its damage can be. If you can recognize these patterns in yourself or someone you love, you're already ahead of the game. Mistake number 1. Thinking, I'm not diabetic, so I'm fine. Prediabetes is like standing at the edge of a cliff and assuming you won't fall. I've had patients with A1Cs of 6.3 who felt completely fine until a stroke blindsided them. The damage doesn't wait for the diagnosis. It begins quietly, years before. If your numbers are in the warning zone, treat them seriously. Prevention always costs less than recovery. Mistake number 2. Ignoring post-meal spikes. Most people only check fasting, glucose, or A1C, but post-meal spikes, those sharp jumps in blood sugar after eating, are often the real threat. They cause inflammation, oxidative stress, and endothelial damage. You may feel fine after a big bowl of pasta, but your arteries don't. I recommend testing 2 hours after your largest meal, at least once a week. If your glucose is regularly over 160 mg/dl post-meal, it's time to adjust. Mistake number 3. Believing that natural sugar is harmless. I don't eat candy, just honey and juice. I hear this a lot. But your body doesn't care if sugar comes from a soda can or an organic apple juice bottle. A spike is still a spike. Natural sugars may carry more nutrients, but they still raise glucose. Fruit is healthy, yes, but large fruit, smoothies, dried fruits, or juices can still push your numbers dangerously high. Mistake number 4. Skipping meals and binging later. Some patients think eating less often will give their pancreas a break. But then they skip breakfast, crash midday, and overeat at night. This creates massive sugar fluctuations, and your body can't keep up. Stable blood sugar comes from consistency. Smaller, balanced meals spaced throughout the day are more effective than feast or famine cycles. Mistake number 5. Waiting for medication as a last resort. There's a fear among many that once you start meds, you've failed. That's simply not true. Medication is not punishment, it's protection. In many cases, early treatment with something like metformin can preserve insulin sensitivity and prevent the need for more aggressive drugs later. Waiting too long often means more damage and fewer options. After a stroke, many patients focus on the physical side, regaining movement, learning to speak again, rebuilding memory, and that's important. But there's another layer of recovery that's just as critical and often overlooked: metabolic healing. Managing blood sugar after a stroke isn't just about avoiding diabetes. It's about protecting the brain you still have. It's about preventing a second often more devastating, stroke. I once worked with a woman named Jeanette. She was 68, active, and recovering well from a mild ischemic stroke. She could walk, speak, even drive again within 2 months. But what changed her long-term outlook wasn't rehab. It was her attitude toward food. She started tracking her meals, learned how to pair carbs with protein, cut back on late-night snacks. Within 6 months, her A1C dropped from 6.8 to 5.5, and she said she felt clearer, more energized, and calmer. That's what people don't always expect. That blood sugar affects the brain in real time, not just in stroke risk, but in recovery, too. High glucose levels, slow wound healing. They interfere with sleep. They cloud cognition and worsen fatigue. Every stable reading you have after a stroke is another layer of support for your healing brain. Blood sugar management becomes less about the numbers and more about how you feel day by day. But it's not always easy. Some patients struggle because they feel overwhelmed. They think, I already had a stroke. Now I have to give up bread, sugar, and happiness too? That mindset is understandable but dangerous. Recovery is not about restriction. It's about intention. You don't have to give up everything you love. You just have to understand what your brain needs now and why. And once you start seeing progress, not just on the lab sheet, but in your energy, your mood, your sleep, it becomes easier to keep going. For stroke survivors, blood sugar control is one of the few things still within reach. It's not a perfect science, and you'll have off days. But every balanced meal, every post-meal walk, every mindful bite, it all adds up. Not just to prevent another stroke, but to reclaim the life that stroke tried to take. If you've been living with high blood sugar, or even just wondering if you might be at risk, this is your moment. The brain doesn't wait for perfect timing. Neither should you. Stroke isn't just caused by one bad habit or one unlucky gene. It's the result of tiny, repeated decisions over time. And that means the power to protect yourself is already in your hands. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tonight. Just start with one thing. Swap that soda for water. Add a handful of leafy greens to your dinner. Take a 10-minute walk after your biggest meal. These aren't just good habits, they're acts of defense, of love, of self-respect. Talk to your doctor. Ask for your A1C. Look at your post-meal numbers. And if they're higher than they should be, don't panic. Plan. Get support. Let your family know. Make one change, then another. That's how real prevention happens. And if you've already had a stroke, don't think it's too late. Blood sugar management can still help you recover, avoid future damage, and feel stronger in your body and your mind. You're not starting over, you're starting wiser. If this episode opened your eyes, or helped you understand your risk a little better, do me one small favor. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone you care about, especially if they're living with prediabetes, diabetes, or just don't know their numbers yet. This channel isn't just about medicine. It's about hope. It's about taking control of your story, one meal, one step, one smart choice at a time. And I'll be here with you every week, because no one should fight stroke alone. See you in the next episode.